Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me thank you for being here. The stories on this podcast are meant to let you know that you're not alone in what you're going through and that we can all find strength in struggle with the right perspective. If you've been enjoying the podcast, let me ask that you leave a review on your platform of choice to help us grow so that we can continue to make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 106. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very, very special guest back in my childhood bedroom in Westfield, New Jersey, my younger brother, Chris Rinaldi. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
I think I'm the first person on the podcast to call you Joey. I just told Dad I had to do that.
Yeah, we are. Nobody calls me that because I don't like it. So we're going to just pretend that didn't happen. But yeah, we have been trying to get this recorded for a while and finally we made it happen. And so I would love for you to just introduce yourself to the audience for people who don't know who you are.
Yeah. I am currently down in Richmond, Virginia, finishing my MBA. Basically high level. I love baseball. I played baseball my whole life. Played at the College of the Holy Cross up in Massachusetts, then at University of Richmond for 1 year, and now I'm working at Vantage Sports, which is essentially a startup in the name, image, and likeness space, where we're trying to help as many college athletes as possible earn from their name, image, and likeness, and really just help teach them what it is, how they could do it better. And yeah, it's been a fun 2 months so far.
Great. Now that's where you are currently. I obviously know your whole life story. I was curious your take on our childhood and what it was like growing up in Westfield, what it was like growing up in our household, what it was like growing up with me as your older brother. I don't know if I've ever asked you that before, and so I'd like to hear your answer to that.
Sure. I'll start with Westfield. Westfield was good. I enjoyed it. I think obviously it afforded us a lot of really cool opportunities that I wouldn't trade for the world. But at the same time, I don't know if I would say I didn't enjoy how at times superficial Westfield is. That kind of got to me a little bit, I guess, later in life, but I enjoyed it for the most part. Still do. Obviously, I'm here right now. So, um, and then I guess going back to having you as my older brother, I don't think, yeah, you definitely never asked me that. Yeah, I mean, you've inspired me in a lot of different ways, and watching you build Project Endure from the ground up has been really cool. Um, Obviously, you're very busy with it, so it's interesting to see how you juggle it all and make everything work, which obviously I have a lot of respect for. But prior to Project Endure, yeah, I mean, I kind of always watched from afar, to be honest. Like we always were separated by that age gap of 4 years, where it was kind of like we were always going through different chapters of life, and or at least that's how it felt to me. So it was almost like I was getting a sneak peek through you of like what was to come, and then I obviously got to dive in and experience it. So
Yeah. On the flip side, I feel like the age gap gave me the opposite opportunity where I got to watch all of the things that I had once done be done again and oftentimes better than I did it the first time. I think baseball is one of those areas where we grew up and dad was always coaching and teaching us, and we were always around that sport. And I loved it. And because of my eyes, I wasn't able to play at a high level, and I had to stop and pivot in, middle school, high school. But I got to watch you excel in baseball. And I always have to preface when I introduce you to people that you're my younger brother because you're a lot taller than I am. You can grow better facial hair than I can. You look maybe older at times than I look. And so it's been awesome, looking at it from my point of view. And also it's been interesting to watch you go through some of the hard things. It's been hard to watch you go through some of the hard things, and I know we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But is there anything else that you want to add before we dive into the deep stuff?
As far, like as far as who I am,
Mhm.
I guess just for people who don't know me, and obviously feel free to add whatever you think is important for anyone, but I enjoy helping people. So in whatever capacity that might be, um, I think that aspect or quality of me has led me to a lot of the different places and phases of my life that I've been or been through. Um, Definitely, it's led me to where I'm at right now as far as making the jump from working at a big corporation to trying to help grow a startup in Vantage Sports. But yeah, no, I think that's about it for now. Sure,
Yeah.
what we'll talk about, we'll cover a lot more.
Yeah. The other thing I would add is that I've just seen you mature a lot as you've gotten older, and especially in the past couple of years. I feel like you've matured a lot and grown a lot as a person. And so, with that being said, we'll jump into the first question. When you look back at your life thus far, what's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you didn't get to choose for yourself?
Um, I would say that I didn't choose for myself would probably be, I mean, really the past year or so, um, having to just deal with processing the fact that I never really thought that for anyone listening, I never really thought that I had epilepsy. I always used to have seizures growing up, and obviously, I'd like to hear your perspective, Joe, on like what it was like to see that. But yeah, I mean, I had a handful of seizures growing up, and had one when I had COVID about 9 months ago at this point, and always really thought that they were random and under control, and they still the type of seizures I have are right, but for me, that was really hard to process. And then just from that, learning that the medicine I was on was not the right medicine for me. Um, and obviously having to go through, a couple of different things. One of them being going back all the way back to New Jersey, going to the hospital, a lot of, steps to get it dealt with properly. For me, that was hard. Um, and obviously I didn't choose that, but I'm glad that I got it sorted out and that I really know what is going on as far as my health is concerned. Because for me, that was always kind of like an afterthought. I just never really had to deal with it head on.
When was the first time you remember thinking about your seizures? Because you had a couple when you were really little that you probably don't remember. What was the first memory there?
The first memory of a seizure was honestly at Grammys. I think I was 7, and I just was like on the couch, bundled up in a blanket, and then all I remember is kind of just going to sleep and waking up and being, like, carted out of Grammy's house. Um, but I never really was awake for one, and that's why I mean, I never really asked you and or Danielle, but yeah, I mean, I would be curious to hear, like, what it was like for you, because I know you used to sometimes find me as I was either having them or had them at night, um, and, like, what that was like for you, because 'cause I'm sure it wasn't pleasant.
Yeah, the one that I remember the most, because a lot of the earlier ones that you had, I was still young, and either they happened when I wasn't home, or mom and dad dealt with it, and someone came to watch Danielle and I. So I don't have a lot of memories of them. The one I do remember was when I was in high school. It was probably 2010 or 11, I
Yeah,
think.
2012.
2012. Okay. So 2012. And I was getting ready for school. And I remember walking down the stairs from the third floor, which is where my bedroom was, which is where you are right now. And right when you come down the stairs is the door to your bedroom and Danielle's bedroom. And everybody should have been awake at that point because we had to leave relatively
Mhm.
soon. But you weren't. Your door, I think, was cracked open and the lights might have been off. And I said your name and you didn't respond. And so I kind of pushed the door open and you were on the floor having a seizure. And I don't remember all the details. It's kind of a blur, but I do remember either calling 911 myself or telling mom to call 911 and then just staying there with you because there's just not so much you can do when somebody's having an active seizure. You kind of just have to keep them safe. And so I remember waiting. I remember you going to the hospital. Then I remember going to school and just being anxious all day at school because I just didn't know if you were okay. And you had always been okay from the seizures. But I think that was the first
Mhm.
time that I wondered if this was going to affect you for the rest of your life and if you'd be able to drive a car and if you'd be able to live on your own and if you'd be able to do all these things because I just kept
Yeah.
imagining seeing you on the floor and wondering what would have happened or what could happen if you were by yourself. So that was really the one that stood out to me. And then this last one, obviously, I wasn't home for, but I heard about, and it was not a good one. And so, yeah, I mean, hearing that, how does that make you feel? Do you think of those things too?
Um, yeah, I mean, I never really thought about it from your perspective. I mean, a little bit, right? But like, I just knew that it probably was hard to be the one to find me, I guess. Um, Obviously, the last one, I mean, mom and dad, like you said, had always dealt with it. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, it makes me a little nervous. At times, makes me anxious for sure. Um, I mean, I was at times like I'll be honest, like scared living alone, but with my medicine, I was always comforted with that. So,
Yeah. We both have things that are uncertain and unpredictable. And for me, it's losing sight. And for you, it's the seizures. And I'm sure there are things we both share in common, just that sporadic anxiousness that comes with not knowing when the next thing is going to happen and just dealing with that. And also, I think for me, and I'd be curious for you, that uncertainty has helped me be grateful for all the moments that I do have where I do have my
yeah.
sight and where I do have my health. But on the flip side, our struggles are also different in a lot of ways. And for me, I've never felt like my overall health was jeopardized by the loss of sight. Whereas for you, you lose control of your being essentially when you have a seizure. So it's different in that
Mhm.
way. What are some of the positives that have come out of the seizures, if any?
Yeah, no, I mean, when I was little, I used to have, well, I had one and I remember missing like a week of baseball, which obviously in the grand scheme of things was nothing, but like to me, and like you mentioned, dad who loves baseball, that was a lot. So coming back from that and like being able to jump right in and really not miss a stride was really cool. Um, and made me obviously really grateful to be able to do those things and still do them regularly. Um, I was grateful even to play football for a little bit, which, you know, when I went into high school, mom put shut down very quickly before we even met with the doctor, really. But yeah, no, um, it's made me very grateful to be able to have played sports because I love them, and then obviously just live a fairly normal life outside of the handful of seizures that I have had. So
If there was something you could go back and tell younger Chris when he had his first seizure that he remembers when he was 7, is there anything you would have told him knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I mean, that everything is fine and that, it's really just a small sliver of everything that's to come. Um, yeah, I would say that's pretty much it.
And then fast forwarding again to present day, and if looking at the last year, which you had mentioned was hard,
Mhm.
that season seems like it was kicked off with a seizure. And then there were other things that kind of unfolded through that year. Part of it might have been living alone, part of it might have been figuring out everything related to your health. What else was hard about this past year? And was it all related to health and the seizures, or is there more to it? Or,
No, I would say, I mean, the seizure for me was, like you said, it kind of kicked it off. Um, and I honestly just like decided after that to go down and go back to grad school. I mean, looking back, and I talked to Maggie, who is my fiance, for anyone who doesn't know, about why I went back. And to be honest, I think part of why I went back was to distract myself from it and like not really focus on it. Because yeah, that was the first one I had in 7 or 8 years. And to be honest, I really frankly didn't want to go back and finish grad school at that time, but I knew that given my current situation at work, which I wasn't crazy about, and everything else going on, that I thought it was the best thing for me at the time, and I still think it was. But I would say, yeah, I mean, just between working a lot um, and taking on grad school, which I know you're familiar with, um, yeah, just a lot of work on my plate from the fall through February and even now. But when I was at Ernst and Young and taking classes part time, for me that was a lot, probably the busiest I've ever been. Uh, and yeah, taking a step away from that was healthy for me. And I know we kind of talked about that, but yeah, that was really, really helpful.
Mhm. Do you feel like you lost part of yourself in that season of life?
Um, Not really. I mean, I Ernst and Young for me was like the start of my career, and I met a lot of really, really awesome and honestly inspirational people because seeing what they dealt with every day, and some of them for 10, 15 years there, was very, very impressive to me. And obviously, you are big on perspective, right? But like that perspective for me was really healthy to see that, and obviously helped shape my perspective of things from the bottom looking up. But I don't think I lost any part of myself, but it was definitely hard to step away from that because it was something that I worked towards for a while. Um, but no, I don't think I lost any part of myself.
Yeah. Or maybe a better way to phrase it is, did you feel lost during that season at all?
Oh, yeah. No, I did. I mean, I just not knowing what was next was hard because, mom, right? Very much a planner. I think I'm more so that type of person myself. So not knowing what was next was hard. But I guess the main thing was, yeah, just having to make the decision and deal with it later, which is typically just how things have to happen anyway. So, yeah, I mean, you could plan as much as you want, but it really doesn't matter.
Mhm. Yeah. Watching everything from a distance from Philadelphia and just seeing how the past couple years have went for you, I think it's been cool to see that you were able to make, I would say, a courageous decision to leave a job that wasn't aligning with where you wanted to be because you had invested a lot of your education and years of your life to get to that point, to earn a job, a respectable job, to learn and grow in that industry, to make a paycheck, and then to give that up was hard. And I knew that was hard for you, and I saw it was hard for you, and I'm proud of you for doing that, because I think a lot of times we need to understand what we don't want to do before we can truly understand what we do want to do. And in that way, I don't think that your time working kind of in the corporate world is a waste at all. And I talk with people all the time about that, and they feel like they've wasted time in their life doing something that they didn't want to do. And while it might not have been the thing that they wanted in that moment, it taught them valuable lessons, and it showed them what they didn't want, and that helps them get closer to what they do want. And like you said earlier, you're a helper. And it's funny that we're talking about this topic, because episode 84 of the podcast was with Colin Raddick, who you connected
Mhm.
me with, and the title of that
Yeah.
episode was It's Not Quitting. And him and I talked a lot about the difference between quitting something and making a strategic pivot that aligns with who you want to be and where you want to go. And I see you on that path, and I love that.
Mhm. No, yeah, Colin's awesome. The best the best hitting coach I've ever had. I mean, he's a really, really talented guy when it comes to baseball and just life, to be honest. Not to mention, it's one of the most down to earth, hardworking, nicest guys I know. But yeah, I mean, I would agree. And it definitely took me time to see that for myself. And not to mention, like, you know, what I was doing in that environment for work, while it wasn't what I wanted to do then, I still think there are parts of it that I'll take and like tie into what I'll eventually be doing, especially after school. But yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think I don't think I viewed it as quitting necessarily, but more so just taking a step back and like resetting. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. And the path you're on now seems like it fits you much better. And as we transition toward the next question, and before we fully get there, I did want to hear a little bit more about your baseball experience, in terms of what were some of the hard things that you didn't choose for yourself in baseball. I'm thinking of one in particular, essentially the time period right before college with your elbow, because you didn't choose
mhm.
that for yourself. And I think a lot of people can relate to the injury aspect of that. So can you talk a little bit about it?
Yep. Right before right before my senior year, I was going around trying to really just get recruited. Had interest from, a few schools, and then was really just going around to camps and showcases and tournaments. And then, ironically enough, I was at Holy Cross, was having some elbow pain, got it checked out, and the doctor basically said, "Yeah, if you could push through it, you're good. There's nothing structurally wrong." And then which is weird, I wasn't even throwing, I was taking a swing, and I just felt like this really immense pain in my elbow and almost like a pop or a crack. And I just had to stop. So I was done for that day. I left the camp. I was probably crying because I'm a very emotional person and that's just who I am. But I left the camp. I told Coach DeCenzo, the head coach there, like, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but I gotta go." And I actually think I had the surgery scheduled for like 2 days after that, and basically updated him and the other coaches, and every other coach that I let know what happened was basically like, "Yeah, thanks for letting me know. Good luck with everything." So that pretty much halted our conversation right then and there, which stunk for me. But what I admired about Coach DeCenzo, and still do, was he called me the day after the surgery. I was probably still drugged up and on whatever they gave me. And he was like, "Yeah, we still want you." And I was like, "That's really cool." And I'm in. So that was that. And obviously for me, that helped deal with the whole rehab process and having to do that for about 6.5 months leading into my senior season. But yeah, I mean, that was a really cool experience for me.
I, from that story, would love to highlight the fact that Coach Asenza believed in you.
DeCenzo. Yeah, yeah,
DeCenzo. Okay, good
yeah,
correction
yeah.
there. Coach Asenzo, in case he's listening. I hope he is. And
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna
apologize.
send it to him.
Good. Well, I apologize for the mispronunciation. I think it's so cool that he believed in you even when your current state of being wasn't ideal or optimal for the recruiting
Yeah.
process. And I think we all need those people in our lives, the people who can see potential in us and believe in the
Hmm.
potential and not just see it or believe in it, but show us that they believe in it and be there for
Hmm.
us. And it all worked out in the end. And you ended up
Yeah.
playing at Holy Cross, I guess for 4 years, but the pandemic kind of right. How do you view that?
Yeah, no, like 3.5. And I guess real quick, one thing that I always appreciated about Coach DeCenzo, I call him D. But one thing I always appreciated about D, and I think this is where we aligned, was he would talk about potential as a bad thing, even though he was the type of person to see it in people like myself at that time and act on it. But he would say that potential is dangerous because, you know, people think about, oh, I have all this potential, and they get caught up in the fact that, you know, without acting on today and doing what's required, I could be at this point, right? And I do think one thing that I would like to hear your perspective on this too, but I do think something that's gotten me to this point in my life and will continue to get me to successful places is the fact that I look down the road and I set goals and I have that vision, which I think D has great vision. And to be honest, right, he went from, for those of you who don't know him, coaching at a Patriot League school, helping us win our first championship in over 30 years. And now he's the AAA bench coach for the Cleveland Guardians in their system. So he's had that vision, I'm sure, for himself for a while now. Um, but he wasn't one to get caught up on the vision. He was in every single day putting in the work. And that's what I appreciated about him and what he taught me. But I mean, I'd be curious not to dive off path, right? But what you think about that and the whole setting goals and that process for yourself.
I think it's a great topic. I agree with everything you said. And there's a Theodore Roosevelt quote where he said, "Keep your eyes on the stars, but your feet on the ground." And I think goals are,
Teddy.
yeah, good old Teddy. I think, I think goals are great for guiding a process, but the outcome isn't everything. And if we fixate on a goal or an outcome or a result at the expense of investing into the process in the here and now, then we almost miss the point because the only thing that we have is the here and now. And none of us
Yeah.
know if we'll be here even tomorrow. None of us know if the goal that we're aiming for will even be possible in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I think there's a moving target in all of our lives when it comes to goal setting and when it comes to envisioning things. And I think it's important to be able to zoom out and look at that big picture and say, hey, down the road, I want to be here. I want to feel this thing. I want to be this person. And then to zoom back in and be here right now with your feet on the ground, taking action toward it. Because the truth is, a dream without action is just a dream. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that. They think, oh, I can see this for myself. I have this potential. I want to be in this place. And then they don't do anything about it, or they wait for the conditions to be right. And I think that's a recipe for regret. And it's something that a lot of people have experienced, are experiencing, and will experience. And I think that the lesson from Coach DeCenzo is a really accurate and powerful one. So I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, me too. And actually, fun fact, did you know Teddy Roosevelt helped found the NCAA?
I did not.
Yeah,
Wow.
he
He's
did.
he's got great quotes and
Covered
he
all his bases.
yeah, really. All right. So Chris, to transition then to the second question, We talked
Mhm.
about the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you didn't choose. What is the hardest thing that you've ever chosen to do on purpose, and why have you chosen to do that thing?
Yeah, so I would say that the hardest thing I chose to do on purpose would be, again, going back down to Richmond and working full time, finishing my MBA, and living really on my own for the past like 9 months. Yeah, that's just been difficult for me. Managing everything has been hard, and I know a lot of people do that. So it's not to say it's the hardest thing in the world, but for me, it has been hard just because I've been away from, the people I love, and at the same time, I've just been I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well, so under a lot of pressure and just probably self-induced stress, but also just stress in general from a work perspective, school perspective, and then just everything else going on. But that's just been difficult. I mean, the fall, I would say, was the hardest part, just between working, whether it was like 40 to 50 hours for work, and then having two classes or three classes a week. And yeah, I just had no time for myself, which I think is important.
Mm.
And I now know is important. So that's one thing. Once I'm done with school, we'll definitely make more time for myself and for things I enjoy. But for the past 9 months, it's been really just work, which is good. It's helped me learn a lot, and I'm glad for that. But at the same time, it's definitely been challenging.
Growing up, did you feel a lot of pressure to perform at a high level in the things that you were doing in any way because of me or because of Danielle or because of just the environment we grew up in with Westfield? Do you feel like that contributed at all?
I did. I mean, if I'm being honest, right, like Westfield has a ton of successful people, but growing up next to you and Danielle probably put the most pressure, and it's not a bad thing. Honestly, the thing that was like, and Danielle knows this, the most annoying thing to me was having my younger sister in my math class with all of my friends and classmates, and she would get the test back and get 100 and look over to me and be like, "What'd you get?" I was like, "Not 100." So doesn't really matter. But no, I mean, it was, yeah, it definitely, it was good pressure, right? Like, you were always doing well in school and in sports. Danielle was just a freak in the classroom and doing extremely well on, whatever sport she was playing. So yeah, it definitely put pressure on me, but it was good pressure, right? Because looking back, it, for the most part, kept me on track and like didn't let me get distracted by a lot of the things that I think a lot of kids get distracted by in high school. Um, yeah, so I think it was good pressure.
Yeah, I've never thought about it from my perspective. I guess I've never felt pressure from you guys, but I can
That means we're
reframe.
not working hard enough. No,
I,
I'm
I could
joking. I'm
I
joking.
could I could reframe that. I never felt pressure as if you and Danielle were breathing down the back of my neck in a competition, right?
Sure.
We have a 4 year plus age gap between you and me, right? And
Uh, 3.5, I think.
is it 3.5? I thought it was four
I think
and a
so.
half. Yeah, it's 3.5. You're right. So
Yeah.
3.5, and then Danielle is it's even a bigger gap, but you guys were close in age. So I never felt like,
Mhm.
we were never in high school together. We were never, walking the hallways bumping into each other and never in the same math class. But I did feel a pressure to to lead with a good example and to do my best for you guys. And I guess I never thought about how the pressure of just being sandwiched in between Danielle and I, just as siblings, just for anybody who might be a middle child, you probably have different kinds of pressure coming from both ends. But like you said, maybe some of it self induced because there's no competition. And I
Oh
like to
yeah,
say Danielle's the smartest of the three of us. You're the best
yeah.
athlete of the three of us, and I'm the most good looking of the three of us.
Mhm.
Is my joke, but
That's up for debate. This is a audio podcast.
the truth is I think we've all turned out to be really awesome human beings.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of all of us.
Mhm.
And it's not a competition. It's never been a competition. It never will be a competition. And I like to think of us as a team, as a unit. And it's hard as life moves on, and I've moved to Philadelphia and you're back and forth from Richmond, and Danielle's in medical school, and we're separated by distance as well as just living very busy lives. It can be hard
Mhm.
to feel like that team unit all the time, but
Yeah.
that's how I see us, and hopefully you see it the same.
No, I definitely do. And it has been hard, honestly, like just not having everyone really together as much, not seeing each other, not talking as much. I mean, it's life, right? But it's definitely been difficult. And I would say, no, you've done I mean, I think if you ask anyone, you've done a great job setting the example, right? And I think that's a testament to who you are and like how hard you work, but also, right, like mom and dad. For me, mom and dad set the example for us by doing everything they did. And obviously now looking back as a 25-year-old and seeing that was kind of crazy for me. And obviously it's all all parents have a very difficult job, but mom and dad obviously I think did a great job with us, and definitely something that helps me push myself, and same with seeing you and Danielle continue to succeed.
Yeah, I think often about all the ways that mom and dad have helped us grow and become the people we are. And I also always thought of mom and dad, and still do, as being the people that I can look up to for answers and guidance and support. And I know that they're there for anything that any of us need. And they've showed that throughout our lives. I mean,
Mhm.
whether it's driving in the middle of the night, however many hours to get to where we are to help us. For me, I know dad has made a couple trips to Richmond. He came up to Pennsylvania when I was in college, and my football career was ending abruptly. And I know they've been there for Danielle in the same way, but I never really thought until I was an adult about what it was like for them to raise us, because mom and dad had me when they were 25. So I don't know if you could imagine right now having an infant,
Nah,
right? You would have no idea what you're doing, but you would figure it
hey,
out.
speak for yourself.
But it gives a deeper level of context and meaning to how well mom and dad have raised us, because they probably didn't know much when they had me. Um,
Yeah.
with that being said, I went through a season of life that I think parallels well to the season that you're either still in or coming out of, where, you're living by yourself, you're in a place that's far from home, and maybe just not feeling the best, a lot of stress and trying to deal with that. And for me, it was my first year of graduate school in Philadelphia. And for you, it's been this past, 9 months or so. And I'm curious what that's actually looked like on a day-to-day basis in terms of your schedule, so that we can kind of set the stage. And then I'd love to just talk about why it's been hard and how you've been handling it.
Sure. I mean, on a good day, right, when everything goes as planned, I'll get up. I mean, when I was still working at EY, I would probably get up at 5:15, 5:30, go to Crunch, which I was lucky to have like 5 minutes from my apartment, come back, make breakfast, do some tax consulting, which really got me going in the morning. Um, and then, I mean, depending on when I got off and if I had class, I mean, if I had class, I would be on campus from 6:15 to pretty much 10. And then I'd come home, do the dishes, and jump jump into bed, or try to, if I didn't have something to do for work. Or sometimes I would get on a call with someone from Australia and like do work, and that was really difficult for me, for a few reasons. But yeah, if I didn't have class, Just tried to get ahead. And now that I'm not at EY, it's been a little bit better, at least the balance for me. So I'll, still get up and go to the gym in the morning, work, um, you know, I not as intense, I would say, because a lot of it's more on my own work and with some of the interns on our team, but work until 4:35. The nice part about this is I'll actually be able to like make dinner or get something to eat and then go to campus, do that, and then, you know, reset. But yeah, that's been it. And then recently just driving back and forth from Richmond to home for various different things. But yeah, it's been busy, but it's been good. And I enjoy obviously getting to see friends, family, like as much as possible. So that's been nice.
Mm. When I was in grad school in Philadelphia, the first year was really hard. And part of the reason it was hard was because, in addition to being in a new place and just adjusting to everything, and being away from family was hard. And I remember taking the train back to Westfield, I would say 9 out of every 10 weekends, just because I wanted to be around you guys. And that was my support system. That was what I had. And I'm so grateful to have been able to do that. And at the same time, I look back and realize that a big piece of why I was struggling was because, in addition to the adjustment overall, I actually was having trouble being in the gym and exercising and embracing fitness the way that I had been used to and the way that I wanted to, because of a shoulder injury and a little bit of a setback there. And when that part of my identity felt like it got taken away from me for a period of time already during a hard season of life, I felt like I had no outlet, and my mental health wasn't in a great place. And so I know for you, baseball has been a huge part of your life and still is a big part of your life. And I'm curious if the past 9 months or so has been especially tough because you haven't been able to interact with the sport of baseball in maybe the way you want to or would hope to.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, that was part of why the past 9 months have been very difficult. I mean, in the fall, I was really lucky to like volunteer with the Richmond baseball team, and I'm really thankful to, Coach Woodson and all the coaching staff at Richmond for pretty quickly opening up that position to me as I came back down to wrap up school. But that was really nice to be able to go and even just sometimes, coach first base or, throw batting practice, whatever the case was. And then, yeah, I was really looking forward to going on some of the trips with the team. And then, of course, that was when really a combination of things happened. Really, just overworked, not sleeping. My mental health was not in the best spot at all, and so I really just had to step back and like take care of myself, as opposed to do what I wanted to do, which was yeah, go and on the weekend travel and be more involved with the baseball team, which I would have loved to do, but wasn't the best thing for me at that time. So that was difficult, and obviously, yeah, it was tough. But
Yeah. Do you feel like you're coming out of that season that's been challenging? Are you still in it, halfway in, halfway out? Are you on the other side? Where would you place yourself?
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much out of it at this point. Half the battle was taking the step back from work, just because it was very demanding, in a good way, right? But for me, given that I am still in school and everything else going on, um, once I made that change, it's helped. And then, yeah, I mean, I really only have 2 more months left of school, so that in conjunction with the fact that I'm taking classes that I like a little bit more help. And I honestly have learned a lot more in these classes, I feel like this summer. So yeah, I think I'm definitely coming out of it, if not already almost there.
I watched a video a few weeks ago, and this all makes sense in a second, by the way. Uh, the video was maybe a 10-second clip of this man in the night standing under a street lamp in the pouring rain, and he's looking up at the sky as the rain is just pouring down on him. And then he looks back at the camera and he says, "It's raining right now, and I feel the rain, but I am not the rain." And the message I took from it was that we can feel things. We can feel sad. We can feel frustrated. We can feel discouraged. We can feel hopeless. We could also feel all of the positive emotions. And just like feeling the rain, we are not those things. We are experiencing those things. And I think sometimes in a season like you described, seasons like I've been through, at times it can feel like you are the thing you're experiencing, and that's just not the case. And just like the rain doesn't last forever, the things that we experience, both the highs and the lows, don't last forever. And I just wanted to throw that in there because I would imagine that people listening to this podcast, some of them are in those seasons, some of them are feeling down, some of them are feeling sad, feeling like they don't know what to do or where to go next. And we'll get to that because I want to hear your take on this at the end. But I just want to throw that in there because it was powerful to watch that video. And I appreciate you sharing what this past season's been like for you in the rain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I appreciate you kind of targeted walking me through it with targeted questions. It's good.
Good. Well, I wanted to hear what you think of when you hear the word endurance, because I know it means different things to different people. I also know you've been running a little bit more as of late. Not that endurance
Mhm.
has to be tied to running, but when you hear the word, what does that mean to you?
Um, think I mean it could mean a lot of things, but to me, and I'll go back to D, just because he has been honestly pretty inspirational to me. Um, the way he would always describe it without really knowing he was you're going to get punched in the face a lot in life, but it's about how you get up and punch back. Um, and I always love that. And you probably know this, but like I think it's probably because I have some anger management issues. And that was obviously like a physical reference in a way. But I always thought to me that's what endurance is. And honestly, we were just watching the McGregor documentary, and he was saying, right, like life is an up and down mental battle. Like that is what endurance is to me after the past 9 months. And not to mention, right, like just before that 9 months, is when I proposed to Maggie. And, right before that is when she went through a very difficult time. And you could relate to it, right? She had two eye strokes, something that she never had to deal with before in her life, right? And for you, you obviously have had more experience on that side of things. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's endurance. If that was concise in any way, shape, or form.
It was perfect. Well, there are a couple things that come to mind. I also watched the Conor McGregor documentary series, and it was really powerful. He has this confidence that I think most people would label as arrogance. However, through that documentary series, you also get to see how humble he can be when he needs to be humble and when he
Mhm.
needs to move past things, because the past couple years for him have been anything but easy or great. And I think it was an inspiring watch. So for anybody out there who hasn't watched that, could be worth it. And then the other thing that I'll share is that I think a lot of times in life, people want things to just be in the middle. They want things to be steady and stable. And I think there's value in coming back to the middle and not getting too high with the highs and too low with the lows. But if you think about a heartbeat and you think about what a heartbeat looks like on a monitor, It's up, down, up, down. It's more nuanced than that, but there are highs and lows, peaks and valleys. And if you're just in the middle, that's called flatlining, and that means you're dead. And I think a lot of times in life, just like the heartbeat, we have those highs and we have those lows, and that is life. That's what is it means to be alive. And
Mhm.
it doesn't mean we should wish away one or the other. It means we should embrace them and understand that with every high, there's going to be a low, and with every low, there's going to be a high, and we have to be present for those, because if we wish them away, that's just wishing away the life that we have. And yeah, I think that was a great example, Chris, of what endurance means to you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So as we begin to wrap things up, again, people are listening to this, and some people are going through seasons like you just went through. Some people might be at the peak of a heartbeat. They might be on top of the world right now, but you get to speak to everybody right now. And I would love for you to be specific and speak to the people who are going through some hard times right now. And you can say whatever you'd like for as long as you'd like. What would you say to them?
I mean, I would just say, I mean, again, I've heard a lot of different, episodes, and people say, that it is temporary, and it is. But I would say just to reach out to a friend, reach out to someone, and just ask them how it's going. And I mean, I think that is in line with who you are, Joe, and like what you do. But I think just taking perspective is really key. And obviously, I think a lot of times when we're going through hard things, it's really easy to get uber focused on what we are dealing with and what we are going through, right? But I think when you're going through something difficult, to hear what's going on in someone else's life, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, is really, really powerful to help reset your own perspective. And honestly, like asking someone, like how things have been going, hearing them and actively listening and being like, if something isn't going well, like actually trying to not get to the bottom of it, but like being there for them is I think really helpful, because you learn more about them, and in doing so, you learn more about like how you could deal with things. So that would be my advice.
That's great. And one of the reasons why I love this podcast so much is because every week, sometimes multiple times a week, I get to sit down and hear what other people are going through, and to watch other people open up and be vulnerable. And it helps me learn more about myself and more about the world, as well as more about other people. And I hope that this podcast, this episode, and all the episodes can reach people in those places where they just need a different perspective, and they need to hear somebody else's story, and they can benefit from that. And so thank you, Chris. And the other thing I wanted to add that ties into, I think, who you are, was a quote that I had used in a blog that I had written about you a long time ago. Do you remember that blog that I wrote about you? I think it was like 5 years ago now.
Yeah, 2018, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So the title of the blog was My Brother and Baseball, Why I'm Proud. And the whole article was about just how you place so much emphasis on all the things that don't show up in the stats, the things beyond the balls and strikes, the hits, the runs scored, etc. You placed so much effort on showing up, leading by example, playing hard in between the lines, and leaving it all out on the field. And I admired that and still admire that about you. And I watched that play out in baseball over and over and over again. And I'm watching that play out in life right now. And I think the hard part about that is effort is so important. You and I both value effort so much, and you and I can both give a lot of effort. And I think sometimes you and I both give so much effort that we maybe don't take care of ourselves the way we need to take care
Mhm.
of ourselves. And so I wanted to share that. And then I wanted to add in a quote that I used to end that blog. And it's from Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Satisfaction lies in the effort, not in the attainment. Full effort is full victory." And I think if we could show up every day, even if we don't know what happens tomorrow, let alone what happens, 10 years from now, and we could just give full effort and be present, keep our feet on the ground while our eyes are on the stars, that we can live a life well lived and we can impact others. And yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I like both of those. And I do remember that. Yeah, I enjoyed reading that.
Yeah. Now, one funny note to end this podcast. Do you remember the home video we have of, and I think maybe we either lost it since we watched it, or maybe the video is damaged, but it's of you, me, and Danielle as children in Danielle's bedroom playing a board game. Do you remember that?
I do.
One of my one of my favorite home videos, because I think Dad has the camera and he comes around the corner, and as he's coming around the corner, you could picture maybe I'm 7.5, you're maybe 4, and Danielle's 3, and we're all in our pajamas playing whatever board game it is. Do you know what board game it was, by the way?
I have no clue.
So whatever it was, and he comes around the corner with the camera. As he's coming around the corner, you're standing up and you say, "That's it, I win." And Dad says, "What happened?" And Danielle goes, "Chris cheated." And then you walk out, you storm out and walk down the stairs and say, "No, I didn't, I win." And I just want to throw that in there because it's one of those memories that I'll always look back on and smile on. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of good home videos that I wish we still had. I don't know if we still have that one,
Yeah.
but yeah. And
Yeah.
I do have 2 questions for you before we end.
Sure.
The first, I guess less serious, but were you nervous for this podcast at all?
I wasn't nervous for the conversation itself. I was a bit nervous just not knowing what you would say. I think the way you addressed me to start the podcast is a good example. But no, I wasn't nervous. I was looking forward to this and excited.
Yeah, no, me too. Me too. And then the other thing, I really do think you should check them out, Joe. I think they're called The Program. It's 2 Navy SEALs that like go around to colleges and perform these different training exercises as like team building events. But that would be, and if Dee's listening, the hardest thing I've ever done is on my birthday, junior year at like 4 a.m. We showed up to the pool and had to basically tread water while taking a sweatshirt off and putting it back on in the deep end, like in the 13-foot diving pool for 2 hours, basically. So definitely check them out. I think you would enjoy that because I know we used to tread water at Grammys sometimes.
That sounds hard. That also sounds incredibly dangerous.
It was, but we had lifeguards.
Okay. Right.
But
Good.
yeah, and Dee was there. So I know Dee was ready to jump in and get us all if he needed.
Good. Well, Chris, if anybody wants to reach out, if they want to follow along with what you have going on, where's the best place for them to do that?
I would honestly say LinkedIn, just
Okay.
because I check that fairly regularly and it's just an easy way for anyone to find me.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure to link that in the description so people can find it. And Chris, just thank you again for this conversation. Thanks for your willingness to be patient in getting this recorded. And also just thanks for being my brother. And I know I tell you this, but just want to say it on air. I love you and I'm very proud of you.
I enjoyed it too, and I love you. And I'm excited to see, what's next for Project Endure and everything you have going on.
Thanks, Chris.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Endure podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Endure Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.